Hi there VC, Steve Whitty here. Time for another video. As promised, this is part 3 of September's finds, the final part. So the last few records that I found and picked up in September. So I won't go on further. I'll show the first one, which is the Pretty Things self-titled debut album. I think it came out in 1965. Not a brilliant copy. It is quite a rough sounding copy, but it's a raw record, so in a way it sort of matches the record. Pretty Things were had a lot of publicity in the sort of the early 60s, mainly because of Phil May's long hair. But they had a really sizable following. Live, they were apparently very good. You've got the guy in the beard, Dick Taylor. He did play one stage for the Rolling Stones. Yeah, so really good record. I think it's a classic British blues R&B album. Well worth seeking out if you get hold of a copy or reissue. Next up, I'm going to cover this up. This is Rare Earth, and this is their album Ma. Rare Earth recorded were on Motown. This is very much a Norman Whitfield record. He wrote the songs and he produced it. Rare Earth just played on it. There you go. There's the cover of Ma. So I think the label, if I just check that. I think it was like is it the Modest label? Something like that. But it was the rock offshoot of Motown. So that's how they got known. I've had a couple of their albums before. This is actually quite a good album. Probably the best one I've heard by the Rare Earth. But yeah, it's not too, it's okay. It's what it is. But it is dripping with Norman Whitfield. Next up is Supergrass. This is the self-titled third album, released in 1999. This is the reissue that's just happened a few weeks ago. I just got the black vinyl edition. Supergrass were a band that came out around the circle of the Britpop area of 94, 95. Were really huge in 95. Had a big hit with All Right, which was the number 2. I think Richard Going Out and Richard Second. I think they were also number 2 hit singles. By the time they got to this album, they were starting to mature their sound, and I think this is by far their best album. And the opening track, Moving, I think is one of the great singles. It tells the story of being on the road and the monotony of it. But you've also got Pumping on Your Stereo, which has got a great video to it. You can check that out on YouTube. Mary's on here as well. Your Love. It's a really, as I say, it's their most consistent. I think it's their best album. Their debut album, I Should Coco, is being reissued again. So I've got an order in for that. So hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, when I do my October finds, I can show you that. But well worth seeking out. I'm always a completist, and sometimes we do have to go back to our childhood. And in this case, this is the case. This is A Visit to Trumpton. This was a trilogy of children's series. So you had, I think, Camberwick Green came first, then Trumpton, then Chigley. And it's basically claymation. There you go. And it was narrated by Brian Cant, who was a very popular children's presenter, 60s, 70s, I think got into the 80s as well. A lot of people hold a bit of a soft spot for him. Basically, the record tells 2 stories, but what makes these albums, these programs so popular is that there was some like tunes done in a sort of folk style, just simple tunes, but they were memorable tunes, and you had memorable phases as well. Trumpton, you got the Fire Brigade. They never always called out, but never to put out a fire. It was like to rescue somebody's cat or fix a leak or something like that. You know, pew pew, Barney McGrew, Cuthbert Dibble, Grub. That was always the roll call when they slid down the fireman's pole. Absolutely, it's timeless. It's that warm. Sometimes you just need, in these trying times, you need to have that warm glow of going back into your childhood. So there, and I don't mind. I picked this up basically on the cover. This is Pictures of Life by Dr. Marigold's Prescription. This is very much pop psych. It's a reissue on the Marble Arch label. I think the original was on Pie. Did really nothing really. It's an interesting listen. It's an interesting artifact of that time. I think they did a couple of albums. But as I say, it's pop psych, you know, and a lot of that pop psych, some of it was very good and some of it was dire, to put forward to a better word. But yeah, it's okay. It's I'm not going to give it up. I could probably give it a few more listens, but it's off its time. It's not bad. It's not. Put it this way, I ain't going to be rushing out to join the Dr. Marigold's Prescription fan club. Next up, Booker T and the MGs and the album Hip Hug Her, and you can see through the cover. This is very much sort of a nod towards what was happening in London. Well, the images, there's a track on here called Carnaby Street. You've got to do a version of Get Ready. You've got obviously the title track Hip Hug Her, Soul Sanction, More, Double or Nothing, Slim Jenkins Joint, Pygmy, Grooving, Booker's Nation and Sunny. So just some well-known tracks on here, but very of that cool vibe that Booker T and the MGs gives out. So it was well worth picking up, and for an old record, it plays well. A band that I'm always looking to pick up the reissues of. This is Sparks, and this is their Gratuitous Sax and Senseless Violins album. This was a reissue that came out in 2018, I think. I'm trying to remember when the album was first released. I think it's in the 90s somewhere. But this has got some great songs on here. Now That I Own the BBC, Gratuitous Sax, and then it opens the album, and the closing track on side 2 is Gratuitous Senseless Violins. Yeah, it's just when I get to sing my way. A lot of humour in this, and the lyrics always has been with Sparks. Ron Mel has got quite a sense of humour on there. Yeah, I just think any Sparks reissues, and there's been a lot floating around. I tend to see if I can pick up if the price is right. Burning Spear and Man in the Hills. Never seen this album before. Obviously, I'm aware of Marcus Garvey, but I'm not really aware much of his stuff. I'm not a great reggae aficionado. I'll pick it up. I know some, and I'll pick it up just to listen to. I know Pete the Shop loves it. Loves the bass of the dub and all that. So, yeah. So it's well worth sort of picking up. If you can find some, it's like a lot of reggae. The sleeves a bit knackered. Records a bit has been well loved for want of a better phrase. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it actually. It was good. Well worth picking up. So, oh, you have to excuse me. My throat feels very dry this morning. It feels like I swallowed something. Next up, Aretha Franklin, Aretha Now. I think this came out 68. You've got on here, it's one of the classic Aretha 60s albums. So you've got Think, I Say a Little Prayers on here. They're the two main tracks. I think it's a bit of a comp more than anything. I'm not sure if it was an actual proper album, but it just came out at that time. I know there's other versions have a different sleeve on it. This is a mono recording on probably one of my favourites, one of my favourite labels. I don't mind showing this. The old Orange and Plum Atlantic. Yeah, it's just classic Aretha, Aretha Franklin. Yeah, always pleased if I can find some of those albums. So yeah, pleased to pick that up. Again, another band pleased to pick up. This is Funkadelics, One Nation Under a Groove. It came out in '78. I think the title track became a hit single for them. Yeah, absolutely wonderful stuff. I've only got a couple of Funkadelic albums, the P Funk, and I haven't got any. I've got a Parliament best of CD as well, floating around. But yeah, really, the whole groove, the funky groove. I won't open it up and show the inside the gatefold. Quite adult, but yeah, absolutely wonderful, wonderful stuff. And then at that point, P Funk, they were playing Funkadelic Parliament. They were playing sort of like wouldn't say arena, well, say arena-sized shows. They had a stage show to sort of back it up with the spaceship coming down and everything. It's absolutely, well, that period that maybe they felt they couldn't do any wrong, but absolutely wonderful record. Okay, not long to go. A couple of records here where I haven't got any cover. So this is Nina Simone's I Put a Spell on You, which came out in '65. Sort of like a classic album. It's got the title track, and it does Jack Brow's Juniki Ba, I think is how you pronounce it. Yeah, it's just a sort of Nina Simone. It's not, I haven't got that much. Well, I think this is the only Nina Simone record I've got on vinyl. I think I've got a CD. Best of CD. It's quite a lot of stuff of Nina Simone, so quite a lot to be able to pick and choose from. This I was quite amazed to pick up, and this is Suicide, and I'm trying to remember the name. It's basically Suicide, and it features the name of the two guys in the album track. This is their second album released on Z Records. Basically, what happened after the first record, it all went, I think, a little pear-shaped for Suicide, and they basically lost all their equipment and lost the money, lost their label. Z Records were sort of offshoot, were keen on signing the band, and means they could get equipment. And the album was produced by Rick Cusack from Cars, and he was such a fan of theirs, he said, "Oh, you don't need to pay me anything, I'll do it for nothing." So yeah, they recorded this, the album. Obviously didn't do that well. I think it sort of went on a sort of permanent hiatus for a long time. But it's quite a good record. You know, I've never heard this first Suicide album, to be honest with you. So I can't really judge how good or bad it is. And then final album is this. This is called a band called Hype Trophy, and the song's called Teen Girl Scientist. Now, up until a few weeks ago, I wasn't aware the band existed. Now, I go to an event called Off the Record, which is held in centre of Birmingham. There's about a few of us. We'll meet up and we'll discuss an album on a theme, and we will listen to it and then discuss it, mark it out of 10, sort of thing. So this came about because one of the guys, Matt Latham, does a little podcast, and he interviewed the band on this. And he got hold of a copy, and he thought, wow, this is brilliant. This is sort of stuff I would love to, if I was in a band, I'd love to play. Well, he did a podcast, he got in touch with the band, and he mentioned that he was going to feature this album he was going to host the session, he was going to feature this album. And the band said, well, you know what? Oh, that's great. We've got some spare copies to send over to you. Now, the band is based in the States, and they must have spent over £100. They put it in a box. I sent Matt a dozen records, and this is one of them. You know, everyone who attended had a vinyl copy of this. This record is actually really good. Think Kaiser Chiefs, think Go Team, think Dogs Dying, Hot Cars. We're talking about early 2000s, the sort of thing that BBC Six Music was playing. And it's really good tunes. It's a sort of mixture. What sold the album to me is, I'll get this out, in this brown paper envelope are the lyrics. So instead of having a lyric sheet, the band had put the lyrics on like 5 different sort of like I say 5 different sheets of paper. You know, it's the first time you could think about actually it's 6, not 5. You could frame a lyric sheet. Absolutely wonderful. Attention to detail. Wonderful drawings. It's sort of like there's a theme to the record. This came out originally in 2015, I believe. The band went on a bit of a hiatus. They're based in New York State. They never really got out of New York State, to be honest. Life got up with them. I think partners in the band, she became pregnant and had a child, and so spent the time of that. And I think they've recorded another album in 2019, but they've never been. I don't think they've ever been to the UK to play. So, yeah, hype for Trophy, absolute wonderful stuff. Actually, sometimes the biggest surprise, biggest surprises is something that you get given and just try out. But yeah, well worth it. Well, there you go. That was September. I'm already a bit busy for October, but I've got other videos to want to record. So thank you for sticking with me in this series. So whatever you get up to, VC, look after yourselves. Make sure you have a good time. Keep spinning, but more importantly, keep on smiling.